Welcome to Mike's Retro Curiosities, where we explore the wonderful world of retro games with the imminent release of a new 3D Donkey Kong game on the horizon, or possibly has already released, depending on where in the fourth dimension you find this video. I thought it would be a good idea to take a look back at Donkey Kong's previous and only other foray into 3D, Donkey Kong 64. Now, Donkey Kong 64 was created by Rareware and was released for the Nintendo 64 in 1999. Now, this was very much in Rare's sort of golden age. They were pumping out just hit after hit during this time, so there were definitely some very high expectations with this game. Donkey Kong himself had, of course, gotten his start in the arcade, though after his initial trilogy of games, this franchise had largely gone dormant for a while until Rare, in 1994, revitalized the series with Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country was a massive critical and commercial smash hit, and it really sort of brought the series back into the limelight. And so, of course, people were wondering, well, when is he going to make the jump into 3D? This was kind of during the time when it was felt that in order for a 2D gaming franchise to survive, it had to jump into 3D. This view is obviously somewhat outdated nowadays, but at the time it was kind of felt like it was almost like the transition between black and white and color in movies, where you had to make the switch. You couldn't stay behind. Donkey Kong 64 appears to have gone through something of a troubled development cycle. There is some footage of early builds of this game where it was pretty much originally intended to be more of a 2.5D platformer, but apparently they never really got very far with that version. They felt that it didn't quite have the same appeal as Donkey Kong Country, and it even didn't look as good because it was using 3D models as opposed to pre-rendered sprites. But they eventually got some inspiration from another Rare game, Banjo-Kazooie. This game was released in 1998, and it very much sort of perfected the style of 3D platformer that had been established in Mario 64, and sort of helped to create the collectathon subgenre that we have today. In fact, Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64 actually have so much sort of shared DNA between them that Banjo-Kazooie had a level that was originally intended to appear in this first game called Fungi Forest that ended up being cut due to time, that actually ended up being fully playable in Donkey Kong 64. Now, when the game released, it actually came packaged with this thing. This is the Nintendo 64 expansion pack. It added additional sort of RAM to the Nintendo 64 system, making it capable of a bit more technically. A number of games by this point had started making use of this, and indeed by sort of the late N64 era, of which this game is a part, increasingly more and more games actually started requiring this thing, or making good use of it. So it was definitely very convenient that this game actually kind of came with this thing. It actually kind of made picking this up a no-brainer if you were big into the N64's game library. Now, the reason why they decided to bundle this accessory with Donkey Kong 64 actually comes down to a memory leak bug in the game that they weren't able to fix in time for when it shipped. But they found that having the N64 expansion pack in the system more or less resolved the issue, and apparently having to release this game with the expansion pack drastically increased the production price and cost Rare and Nintendo quite a bit of money. Now, as for the game itself, it very much follows in the vein of Banjo-Kazooie. It's a collectathon in a set of sandbox-style levels that encourage exploration. However, this game added kind of a ton of complexity. It was a lot bigger than Banjo had ever been. And this was actually a very ambitious title for its time, but they may have actually kind of overdone it. There was definitely something lost from the elegant simplicity of Banjo-Kazooie. This game was admittedly a bit of a mess, if I'm being honest. First off, there was just a ton of collectibles. In fact, I think that for a while, this game actually held like a Guinness World Record for most collectibles in a single game. Now, I'm sure that there are games today that have surpassed Donkey Kong 64 by orders of magnitude, but this was huge for its time. So you had to collect bananas, banana coins, banana medals, golden bananas, keys, battle crowns, fruit and musical notes, which were used as ammo for your various weapons and items, film, which you used for taking pictures of banana fairies, which were another collectible, blueprints, as well as a Rareware and Nintendo coin. That is quite a lot, and on top of that, some of these collectibles could only be collected by certain Kongs. So in this game, you actually have 5 Kongs. You have Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Tiny Kong, Chunky Kong, and Lanky Kong, each of which had their own sort of unique abilities that made them special. And some of them could only some of them could access certain parts of levels, and you were constantly having to switch back and forth. And where you could switch back and forth was at specific tag barrels that could sometimes be a bit annoying to have to go all the way back to and sort of backtrack. Beyond this, the game also has like a ton of various mini games which are needed to collect golden bananas. You have games based on old arcade games like Dodge 'em. You have a slot machine mini game, and just a ton of different ones, some of which repeated, and unfortunately some are definitely a lot better than others. And this unfortunately did sort of dilute the core gameplay style, because you were constantly switching what you were doing pretty regularly, if I'm being honest. The game also had a fairly extensive multiplayer mode for its time, just a ton of stuff to see and do. And while this game is kind of a mess, I have to admit I do kind of have a soft spot for it. Now take what I'm going to say about this game with a grain of salt, because I actually do sort of have nostalgia for this game. This was a game I had growing up. Now granted, even then I had games that I preferred over others, and while Donkey Kong 64 was never at the top of my list, it was far from the bottom as well. But yeah, I do kind of feel that this game gets a bit of a bad rap. It is flawed, to be sure. It definitely isn't as good as Banjo-Kazooie, and it definitely isn't Rare's best work on the Nintendo 64. But I don't know. I still think it's fairly well designed, instead of how messy it can be. It also has an excellent soundtrack, courtesy of Grant Kirkhope, which was yet another common thing that it shares with Banjo-Kazooie. He really did a great job sort of bringing DK Island to life, and a lot of the themes are kind of still stuck in my head even to this day. Like, does anyone remember the sort of core sort of island theme? That theme was great. There was also, of course, the infamous DK rap. At the time, it was very cringy because this was kind of an era when a lot of media was trying to be cool and hip with the kids with their rap music. Nowadays, it's kind of a more cheesy fun. I do definitely have a soft spot for that. And this game is actually so jam-packed with stuff that it even has the original arcade version of Donkey Kong, as well as Rare's first game, Jetpack. So, I guess in conclusion, while this is a very ambitious but very flawed title, somewhat overhated, definitely not Rare's best effort, but I still think, in spite of everything, it's pretty solid. I enjoy it quite a bit. Overall, I could probably recommend this game to anyone who enjoys 3D platformers from this era. Just, bear in mind that it is quite a bit to get into, and I definitely recommend checking out Banjo-Kazooie first. But, if you played this one and thought that it could use a bigger scope and more complexity, well, Donkey Kong 64 is definitely for you. Well, that'll be it for today. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This video is sponsored by M&M Games, and I will see you guys next time.